really happy that we are able to sit back home and do all this and prepare well for exams. And also, the exams have been postponed again. So I think rather than looking at it in a negative perspective, we got to make use of the excess time that we got and overcome all the shortcomings that we had in the past. So the subject I am dealing, it is ITEAS and SM for both old and new syllabus. And I have heard it in the past how this subject has been troublesome for so many of you. I know the obvious reasons as to why it is troublesome, because most times we try and read so much back home and we do all our effort, but when it comes to the exam, somehow it sets us back. And not only that, while reading also, a lot of people face this issue about they're not able to remember, which is also a very common cause that people have mentioned through this subject. So why this session, what I want you to understand and what I'm going to bring to you is some of the important aspects that you can use for the preparation of this paper, and also the most important thing on how we present it in the exam. Before I go to the presentation part in the exam, I want to consider a few critical aspects, and here we want to focus more on those aspects, because when you prepare back home very well, you can present it very well in the exam. See, we put hundreds of hours back home in preparation, but we are given only 3 hours. So let me start in the best interest of all students. The presentation aspects to be considered. The first one, you know how you have 30 marks of multiple choice questions, and how we have the balance 70 marks of descriptive questions, right? Now here in descriptive questions, you are expected to write precise answers. But when it comes to the MCQs, you are being given 4 options. Now all you need to do is to choose out of the 4 options. I am not telling that that is an easy task, but having said that, yes, you already have the answer in front of you. Probably if you had enough amount of preparation, the moment you see the question, you should be able to select one out of the 4. And also, only in this subject, we have a 15 mark breakup of MCQs also, for 15 of SM and 15 respectively for IT and EIS. Now, also there is one more very scoring part of this entire paper, which is called as flowchart. Now, sometimes flowcharts are being asked in the exam, sometimes they are not being asked in the exam. But I believe that if you are well equipped with a flowchart, sometimes there are instances where they've asked a simple flowchart for even 6 marks. So I have a few aspects to cover here. I have lined up. Let us start one by one. So first, going up with the order of answering. Is there a need for you to present your exam paper only in a specific order? The answer is no. You can write those answers that you know the best, and that too in a subject like ITSM. You need to present the best answers in the beginning, so that you are conveying the fact to the examiner that you are well aware of the answers that you are writing. And more importantly, since this being a totally theoretical paper, you simply will have to answer the question. You can't beat around the bush and write content that is not necessary. Most common mistake that students do is to write so much of irrelevant content in an answer. I have gone through the examiner's comments that they generally put up the ICAI's website. Most number of examiners have complained the same point, saying that lot of students are writing irrelevant content. Now when it comes to some other subject, they are pointing out points like students have not understood the question, students have quoted the wrong section or provision. But here in ITSM, the common point that you observe is they're saying students are writing irrelevant content. Why are students writing irrelevant content? Is because students are under the impression that the lengthier the answer is, the more marks you are going to get. First, let me make you very clear, this is a thorough misconception. Your length of the answer and the marks, they are nowhere directly proportional. You need to understand that the quality of the answer, even if there are only 4 points in the answer and that question is coming in the exam for 4 marks, if you write all those 4 points correctly, you are going to get 3.5 or 4. In fact, sometimes, nowadays the scoring has gone very high. People have started scoring 80 plus marks very comfortably. So first I want you guys to target on these multiple choice questions, because the answers are very much there, and all you need to do is from your preparation aspects. Now herein from the attempt we have case based questions. So they're going to give you a small situation in strategic management. Maybe they might give you an organization situation. They're going to tell you that this is how things have happened. And then I believe, with my experience in the past as to what I have seen, case based questions are still going to be based on concept only. So it's not like an English comprehension where answers are going to be there in that paragraph. No, that case is more a situational aspect. So case is not going to explain you answers inside those. So it's like first question when you read and you see the 4 options, one of those answers will be in the case paragraph. No, I doubt that. So most likely the MCQs that they give, even in case based questions, they are all going to be based on concept only. So the case is only a referral aspect. So make sure that you read the case quickly, understand it carefully, and then read every question and answer. You know why most people are losing marks in MCQs? Because they're quickly jumping to conclusions the moment they read MCQ halfway through. I have seen and I have been conducting these MCQ quizzes, and I know how people are ready to jump and answer this. But in the exam, take extra 10 seconds, it's not a problem. On every question, you need thorough understanding, because I have seen some of those questions being very tricky. Now, of course, the questions are not being given out, but if you see the ICAS mock exam papers or their RTPs, the questions are framed in such a way that they are testing the students' intellect, not students' reading abilities. So nowadays, the very reason why people are able to score high in this paper, that too in the last 2-3 attempts, is thanks to MCQs, because you have solid 30 marks here. So first, make sure that you read the question carefully, read all 4 options. Many people have this habit, if the answer is in A or B, now you know the answer is A, but you please take another 10 seconds to read B, C and D options, because I mean, you don't know, sometimes you get carried away and most times what happens, the option A is a very lucrative option. It's like, yeah, this only may be the answer, and you get very carried away with that. So please read all 4 answers carefully, then choose the right one. And most number of times, if your preparation is right, by the time you finish reading the question itself, you will be knowing what the answer is, and then it's all about searching out of those 4. There are only 3 techniques in answering multiple choice questions, guys, and that too precisely in papers like SM, IT and EAS. You don't have any new answers that you will derive. Questions are going to come from the material only, because see, it is not like your other problematic papers where you have to go concept based and they will give you a new problem in the exam for which you have to solve. There is no case like that. Straight away questions are going to come from your material only. So all you need to do is be thorough with the concepts and then read question carefully, and I'm going to give you 3 techniques for answering MCQs. 1. Read the question. By the end of the question you will know the answer. So choose the answer out of the 4. This is one way of answering the MCQ. The second sort of MCQs are pick up one out of the 4. They're going to tell you which of these is an incorrect statement or which of this is a correct statement, for which you need to again read all 4. Some people, their habit has become like that when they read, if let's say B is the correct statement and the question is identify the correct statement, without reading C and D, they're straight away going and marking answer as B. What if you understood B wrongly and D is the answer? So make sure to read all 4 again and again. I'm emphasizing on the same point because I have seen many students come back and complain saying, sir, we didn't read that bit only. So that should not be the case, and I want you to be really critical about that. And that sums up the story on MCQs. And the third option for dealing with MCQs is first you read the question and then you see if you don't know the answer by reading. Good thing, no negative marking, so you can still take your best shot. So read all the 4 options. Put these options into the question and see which one suits the best. Now, if you don't know and you're leaving it, you're going to get 0. If you're going wrong, also you're going to get 0. So, I'm not saying guess it, but you should have very less number of MCQs which are answering in this manner. But sometimes it works. When you read the question and fix one of the options to the question, You can do that very much in mathematics. Back in time, we take those 4 answers and substitute those answers in the MCQ. Whichever satisfies the equation, we used to put that as the answer. You remember, we used to do that back in mathematics. But now you don't have the option here, because this is not putting an option into the question and seeing which one frames the best sentence. That is not the test that they are putting you onto. But that is the last option that I am saying, that instead of leaving it, you can try fixing it, so that sometimes while you are doing that, you may recollect a definition or so. So that way we can safeguard our first 30 marks, which is right now a boon given to the students. So again, since 30 marks are there, don't be under the impression that I will do well in this 30 marks, and even if I do fairly well in this 70 marks, I am happy. That's not the situation. I'll tell you why. Because if you have to score good marks in 30, you should again have the same conceptual knowledge, which requires in this 70 also. So if you are doing very well in 30, you will also do well in 70. And if you are not doing well in descriptive, you will also find it difficult to answer MCQs. So don't be under the impression that I can score 30 out of 30 in MCQs. Even if I get 10 or 15 in the balance 70, I am through. Please don't be under that impression. Don't look and hang around 40s. When you are presenting the paper, always concentrate on which ones are the very scoring parts. Because when you do that, and that requires a thorough reading of the question paper, which is what my next point will be. So if you are asking me about, so this part, I hope everybody is convinced that 30 marks, you got to be very, very careful. Now let's go on to the second part, where then we have the 70 marks, where we have our greater part of discussion focused on. In this 70 marks, now very, very important is you have a bit of choice. Make sure that you take the right choices. Now sometimes if you are not writing a particular question, some students have this impression that they have to somehow answer for 100 marks. Hook or crook, they have to somehow answer for 100 marks. Your impression of answering 100 marks is like putting a question number and writing some content under that is not equal to answering that. So please don't be under the impression that whatever I write will be considered as an answer. Instead of leaving it, simply if I jot down 7 or 8 points, they may at least give me 1 or 2 marks. Now we have seen and understood the correction patterns of the institute. Unless your answers have specific terms, which I have mentioned here, called technical terms, unless you are very critical about mentioning all that clearly, you are not going to get your marks. So please don't be under the impression that I can put the heading and write, and just to satisfy yourself saying that I wrote the exam for 100 marks. So take that thought out of your mind that you have to compulsorily write for 100 marks. You miss a 4 marks question, not a problem. You wrote the balance 96 well, fine. You missed 1 more 4 marks, balance 92 well. But don't keep missing one by one and come down to 70 or 60 and say I wrote only for 60 or 70. But to the extent what I wrote very well. Give me 65 out of 70. That's not going to happen. Okay, in the rare of the circumstances it may still happen. But make sure that you are able to write to the highest possible marks with good content. And that is pretty much possible only when you focus on the 70. Because here, like I said, no looking back. For all 30, you got to answer. Okay, even when you don't know, you still can take the best shot. But here it's not like that. In the name of giving a best shot, don't write some unwanted content that is going to cripple the minds of the examiner who is reading your paper. And I don't think that, is very sound enough to do that. Okay. So in the 70 marks, we have an order to look for. Sir, is it compulsory to look for the order? Again, I am mentioning order is not really a concern, but internal questions. Now, if you picked up question number 3, 3A, 3B, 3C, try to keep all of them at one place. No, sir, I wrote 3A and 3B, 3C I wrote elsewhere. Most likely, if somebody who is correcting your paper observes that you wrote 3C elsewhere, they may give marks. If you are concentrating on my wording, they may. It is not compulsory that they should give you marks, because you breach the rule. Because the rule says write all the sub questions of a question in one place. But in the benefit of students, what sometimes the examiners do is they do consider, because you wrote 3C elsewhere, they might consider, and they don't want you to lose those marks. They may consider. That's up to them. Because once you breach that. Now, internal order I am talking about. Otherwise, the questions, choose with the best one. Sir, I know 5th question the best. Okay, start with that. and make sure all the fifth questions, sub questions are answered properly. And the next thing that many people are asking is, sir, should we use technical terms? Now, first of all, I want people to understand there is nothing called technical terms. No, sir, in a subject like IT or EAS, we are having so many terms. Yeah. Now, if you are saying that there are so many terms and you have understood the subject with that criticality only, now tell me, why should they not be forming part of an answer? Now, I will give you examples to justify this point because simply I don't want to talk in the air about them. Technical term, let us pick up some topic like information systems. Now, you know there is a particular topic called information systems which consists of all the components, hardware, software in that, application software, system software, and then we have data, database management system. Is your problem about remembering them? Then I have a different solution. We will talk about that. Is your problem about presentation? I will talk about that now. Because some people remember the content but they don't want to, or they don't know exactly how to put it in the paper. Some people's problem is that they are not able to remember it only. Let us actually try and find a collective solution for this. Now, I have always encouraged people to prepare summaries of every concept that we read. Because even if it's a 10-page concept, preparing a T-shaped summary with tables properly will help you a great deal. You know why that is? Because our brain can, remember frameworks more easily than pages and pages of paper. So if you can kind of make a summary and put up, like I just told you, I can give you that example here. So information system, the components if you're talking about, you can simply make this 6 different parts. I'm not going to elaborate, but then people, hardware, software, data, networks. And you can as well classify software into application software, system software, then hardware into input devices, processing devices, memory devices, output devices, and so is the case with networks, connection oriented, connectionless. Okay, I'm not getting into the concept, but all I'm saying is this, if you go to this particular chapter and see, this entire topic stretches to roughly 8 pages. But you, if you are able to comprehend it like this into one chart, any part of this being asked in the exam, first and foremost thing, you know what is the overall content that is there in that entire concept. Then you have to be very choosy about what to write. Now, if they asked you a question on explain about the concepts of hardware. Now, this is a very critical question. I'll tell you why. Because input devices, output devices, these two are simple. They are not going to ask exclusive questions on that unless it's going to be a small one. But with respect to memory devices, that alone can be asked as a short answer question. Now, but they didn't do that. They asked you the entire hardware as a short answer question. You should know how to, dedicate time for these kind of answers. Just because you know that answer, you can't keep elaborately discussing all that. So, write what is input devices, examples. Write what are output devices, examples. Memory devices, examples. You need not get to the sub paragraphs and explain them in detail. Now, this is something that you have to take a call in the exam hall, depending on the number of marks that they have allocated to that particular question. And this sort of a technique applies to so many things. The whole of strategic management for 50 marks can be presented neatly in the form of charts like this. Take the strategic management definition to start off. What is strategy? What is management? What is strategic management? What are the 5 phases? Under each phase, what comes? And in strategy making, we have corporate level strategies, business level strategies, functional level strategies. Under each of them, what comes? The very easy way of breaking them down will help you answer in the exam more easily. Rather, though we are discussing today on paper presentation, why I am telling you this is because you can present the paper well only when you know what is there in that. Because the biggest challenge is, see, most people know the basic things that you have to write in points, don't write in paragraphs because paragraphs look lengthy. It disturbs the mind of the examiner to read so much. Not that they won't read, but it takes a time. I think you know all these points. That is not, that's why I'm not touching the basic points. I am talking about what seriously goes wrong. This is totally something that you can gauge only by experience. and I don't want you to have that bad experience. So that is why before even you present in paper, you should present the entire content in your mind. And presenting so many hundreds of papers to your mind is not an easy task, which is why use these kind of things. Put up everything, and this could be applied even for law, audit, SM, IT, everywhere same technique. Make a summary notes, feed that summary into your head in the way of frameworks. And when you do that, a 10-page topic can all be framed in 2 or 3 frames, which makes your life more easy. Now, once you do this, make sure while doing this, whatever those so-called technical terms are there, now you're talking about business process automation. I'll tell you another very simple example where students critically miss marks. Generally, the rate at which data is transferred, 1 Mbps, 2 Mbps, 5 Mbps, what do we call that as? In the colloquial language, we call it as speed of internet. Now, first of all, it's an absurd statement, but I'm just telling how most people use the word speed. The internet speed is low, internet speed is 5 Mbps. I'm okay with that term when we are talking. But when you're presenting in the exam, I'm not saying it will completely be wrong to say that, but there is a specific terminology for it. What is it called? Bandwidth. Now you know, and you have a definition in your book saying bandwidth is the rate at which data is transferred. Speed also conveys the same meaning, but now that's exactly what people call as technical terms, and they confuse themselves so much. Sir, I'm not able to write technical terms. Please don't exaggerate the issue and call it technical terms and make it very difficult for your own self. So concentrate on these kind of minute aspects and your scoring will improve big deal. Okay. So instead of writing speed, you can write bandwidth, which is going to obviously fetch marks. Now those are the things that I want you to put in your summaries when it comes here. That is when you revise this more number of times, those points will automatically sit in your head, and when you are presenting in the flow itself, they will come. You don't have to do some extra effort to bring in the technical terms in here. So try and use most of the terms that are relative to a particular topic when you're presenting in the paper. That is the most important thing that examiners are looking for. See, we all know that examiners will have a key to which our answer sheets are compared with. Now, when your answer is conveying a particular point, but not in the same terminology as mentioned in the key, you have a doubt. Sir, will I get marks? Should I exactly copy paste the content that is given in study material or practice manual? Is it going to be the only way to fetch marks, or is it that can I do anything better? Believe me, I have seen so many hundreds of students in the past who cannot basically frame a sentence in English owing to different reasons. No offense to anybody there, but all I'm saying is they are not even very good in framing sentences because maybe they have not studied English medium or whatsoever be the reason. Those students have also scored very high marks owing to a simple technique where they are able to understand what is there in a concept, replicate. So does it mean we have to by heart and exactly vomit the same thing? No, that's not our logic. I'm telling you that as long as you are able to convey the content that is there in the answer with selective terms. Now, like say you're writing a topic on business process automation. You can't just simply write, use of computers is automation and close the answer. That's not how you deal with things. What is it they're talking about? What are the steps involved? And how are we going to deal with it? Everything has a important part. Like say, one of the steps in implementing BPA will be appointing a consultant. Appointing a business process consultant. Now, I have seen some people use terms like take help of consultants. Take help is different from appointing a consultant. Appointing is more a contract. Taking help is more a friendly aspect. Now, simply, this is, see, your grammatical variations of how you build a sentence can also play a great deal in your answer. And that's more so important in papers like law and audit because and or also can make a difference. So, you can be a little thankful here that even if you are slightly breaking up the sentence up and down in grammatical cognate variations, it should not be a real problem. Having said that, if you are not making the sentence itself in a proper manner, it may not convey the theme to the examiner. So therefore, yes, it is important to make sure that you write proper terms, How will we practice? Is when we make these summaries, make sure that all those terms that you have underlined while studying form part of the summary, so that life after that becomes easy and you are reminded of those things. As I just told you, points, always I choose to write point wise, not paragraph wise. Some answers you can write paragraph wise because they are only a small content, a definition kind of a thing, 1-2 marks if they ask you. Otherwise, you can always stick to point wise. Sir, 3 marks answer. How many points should we write? There is no hard and fast rule of 3 marks answer will have 3 points or 6 points or 9 points. There is no rule of that sort. Given whatever is the best content that you can present. Let's say in the study material itself there are only 4 points for the 3 marks answer. If you are able to replicate all the 4 points correctly, I think you are going to get your full marks. So make sure to write the content that is exclusively related to the topic. Now, some people have the habit of giving introduction to an answer. Introduction to an answer means, let me again give you with an example. They asked you a question in the exam as to explain the steps involved in business process automation. Explain the steps involved in business process automation. Now, most people what they do, they put the side heading as business process automation. Write half a page on what BPA is. Did they ask you that? Explain BPA and write the steps involved. If they would have told you that, then there is a sense in explaining BPA. The question was very clear. List down the steps involved in BPA. So you can simply go about, yes, you can do that. Put the side heading as BPA and say removal of all the human elements from the entire processing and getting it processed through use of information systems is business process automation. That sentence makes the end of the story. You can convey to the examiner that, look, I know what BPA is, and then you start writing the steps because the marks are for the steps. But what people do, they write about BPA, they write a couple of points which are the advantage of BPA, the use of BPA for an organization is, they didn't ask you all that. Just because you know something good about it or you read it very well and went to the exam, don't try to exaggerate, it's not required. We are not doing any case presentation here that we write introduction, then explain the facts, we are not doing that. And I believe some students are under the wrong impression that only when we do that we are going to get marks. No, please be very clear. Now, if they ask you the steps involved in BPA, yeah, in that particular answer, I want to mention another very important presentational aspect. Sir, are the order of 8 steps involved in BPA important? Absolutely. I'll tell you the difference with a couple of questions there. Say if you are being asked steps involved, not only here, I took BPA as a simple example because it's there in IT, EAS also, so everybody watching will understand. Also in SM, you can pick up something like steps involved in supply chain management. When they are asking you steps, order is very, very important. Order is very important because you can't do step number 4 straight away while doing, without doing step number 1, 2, 3. So messing up the order there, maybe, people may not get convinced. So when they are asking you questions like what are the steps in supply chain management, follow the flow. What are the steps in BPA, follow the flow. So there are 2 types of answers in your book. One that requires the order, one which do not require the order. Like in the same topic there is another question called benefits of BPA, which are also somewhere around 8 benefits. Do whatever you want. All I need is those 8 benefits. Now some people have the habit of making acronyms to remember. Very good. Suit yourself. You can juggle up and down because they are just benefits. So if you write the 5th benefit as the first one, nobody is going to deny that. So make sure that in such kind of answers, you use acronyms. Now I have this one simple example, let me give you. What about the information presented in MIS? If they are asking you a question in the exam like, what type of information is presented in an MIS report? You have a small acronym there that I have made up, STAR. Structured, timely, accurate and relevant. Now, nobody will stop me from writing this in this order. Though you see in the book it may not be in this order. Maybe accurate is coming first. But nobody cares because these are only qualities. If structured is written as the first point, you are not going to lose marks. But while you are writing steps involved in BPA, appoint a consultant can't be the first step. Understood? So, there are 2 sorts of answers where order is important. For all those places where order is important, make sure there is a small technique for that also. You can tell yourself a small story about that entire topic, and let's say, think of yourselves in your office. If BPA is going on, how will you react to that situation? Make a small story in your mind and all 8 steps will flow. So is the case with supply chain management. Put yourself in the position of supplier or a manufacturer or a customer and see where you stand in the supply chain. Where is supply coming in, where is manufacturing, where is customer, delivery in between, from where to where does this go. It's a story that you tell yourself that you can remember. And here you can make acronyms for these kind of topics, some benefits, or explain the concepts like ERM, enterprise risk management, a framework. What are the components of internal control? So some answers where you don't have order, it's up to you. You can make acronyms, or you can there also remember them in the order if you want to do that. But in case of steps, make sure that you write them in the order, because that's the best presentation that you can give for that answer. Right. So ordering covered, point wise covered. Now one small thing to close that part is the length of the answer. As I told you, nowhere length has been specified. For a 4 marks answer, you have to write 2 pages. No. But that also doesn't mean because there are only 2 or 3 lines that you know about that particular topic, you write those 3 or 4 lines which is correct and expect all 4 marks to you. Relevant content. Now there might be, most people are under the impression that if you write lengthy answers, you're going to get more marks. Remove that thought from your head, because in our exams, what is more valued is your concept rather than your length of the answer. So keep it precise, at the same time try and convey the maximum content that is possible, because if you are able to do that, I have seen people score great amount of marks irrespective of using the book language. Should we frame the sentence exactly as what is there in the book? Not required. You can use your general English to, as I told you, but make sure that your grammatical variations are correct so that the sentence building appears to be fine. Okay. So guys, therein use of technical terms, the order, and what you're supposed to do with respect to length and keeping it point wise. And how do we do it point wise? For that, what is the background? That today if you are working, sitting back in the house with all these summaries, in the 3 hours of the exam you will not panic. And again, sir, what is the choice of answering? Would you go for MCQs first or descriptive first? I generally prefer MCQs first, because you know the reason, straight and simple. You have options already given there, so read and answer. It's more of that task rather than read, think and answer. Here also you have to go by read, think and answer, but read and think happen very quickly in this case rather than this. Here in descriptive questions, please read question, take a small pause, like maybe 30 seconds or even 1 minute, invest in thinking what to write, because most people know while writing only they are thinking and they are trying to write. So I have seen some people write the same point twice, or I have seen some people write all the points but miss couple of key points. Now when you are able to remember 8 points in an answer, why not 9 and 10? That's only because you panicked in the exam and you wrote very fast, you missed a point. So first, before starting to write the answer, frame in your mind, like, yeah, this is what my answer is going to be, 8 points are going to come, and let us go in that flow. And that way you will do 2 things. One, you're doing a good to yourself by not forgetting the answer, and 2, your presentation will automatically look better. Okay, again, presentation is not about drawing margins or underlining with beautiful things and using change of colors and all. Don't do that. It's not required. Very, very clear the institute is. When it comes to valuation, what is considered is only your quality of the answer. So, changing pens, juggling it off and then underlining, drawing too many things. Look, I have a point for that also. Because some people have asked this question in the past, sir, now like say for example, can we draw something like this in the exam? I remember my summary. Can I exactly draw my summary in the exam like this? Should I go for, like say now they asked you about types of networks, classification based, area based. Can I draw a table? Look, it's not compulsory. 1. Sir, will it add value to my answer? Not really. Can I still draw it? Absolutely. You can do that, but provided it's not going to take more time. Now some people are very artistic. They take the scale, draw the box and then draw it. All this is a waste of time. The same pen with which you are writing, if you are able to write the heading center page, draw 3 branches, quickly mention what they are, is more than enough. Taking a scale, drawing box around them, making it look very beautiful, not essential. First of all, if you don't draw the table also and write the answer correctly, you are still going to get great marks. The reason you are drawing that quickly is, like how impressive the answer can be when somebody is reading. In the first line itself, you show them that these 3 are the points that are going to come. They will be very satisfied saying that this person knows the 3 parts. Let us see how they have written. Now you write the 3 headings correctly and write nonsense inside, they are not again going to give you marks. So mind you, just by drawing that, you are not going to get marks. Drawing that will definitely put a positive thought in the mind of the examiner when he is reading, okay, job 1, this fellow has done it correctly, that they have written all 3 points. Now is the time for us to go further and see how this is, kind of broken down. Then you use your basic language to write also. They will appreciate your answer because you have given an overview, you have shown it, and then you have written it very well. So yeah, you can draw these kind of small tables or small frameworks. Like say for example, if they ask you a question in SM, what are the 4 P's involved in marketing? So you can put the heading marketing mix, take 4 branches and write product, price, place and promotion. You can do that. Or if they ask you to write a short note on Michael Porter's strategies, then you can write again heading Michael Porter's strategy, cost leadership, differentiation, focus. You can always do that, and then, but you are not going to get any extra marks for doing that. But like I said, it's it's like throwing an arrow on bullseye and saying, I know what I'm writing, and then you can present your content. If you are not willing to do all that, straight away get into the answer. Michael Porter's strategies are, at business level, they are also called as base generic strategies, and the strategies are explained as follows. Couple of lines of intro, not more than that, and then step into the answer. Start cost leadership, go on. Understood? So keeping your answers precise to the point is very, very important. And so what about case-based MCQs? Do I need any separate approach for them? As I told you in the beginning, case-based MCQ wise, read the case. Most number of times the MCQ that they ask will be something out of concept. So it will be relating to the case, but it is surely out of the concept. So you don't have to do any exclusive special kind of preparation for case-based MCQs. What I suggest to do is, you can always, go and look back the RTP or the mock exam papers where these case-based MCQs are presented. Okay, so all these are some contents that you need to take home. Now, what about, as I told you about drawing also, so all these are taken care of. One important point that I want to look back here is about flowcharts. Guys, as both IT students and EIS students, flowcharts are a very important topic. But most people, they are, I don't know for what reason, they ignore that topic, because drawing flowchart or finding the technique or connectivity may sometimes be a problem. Now, you can see a lot of videos, and nowadays see the digital world has changed. You have access to all of the videos that are there here and there. So lots of them are there. If you don't know how to do them, just go learn them. Okay. So make sure, like time wise, chart wise, there are a lot of videos that are come up with explaining rankers papers, how they have answered, how they have written. If you find some time, you can always go back and check them, all of those. Okay. And then there is a clear cut view about, should I write SM first or EIS first? Now this, I am no party to answer this, but you can write whatever you feel is comfortable, because some people are good at SM, so they want to present it in the comfortable manner. You can do it. Some people want to finish off IT, not because that they're very good at it, but they want to finish that first and get away with it. Because some people, they panic so much and they come to the exam, and if you are in the old syllabus, this is the last exam. So sometimes what happens, in the happiness of this being your last exam also, you are overjoyed and forget things. So please make sure that till the exam is over, you don't lose focus on it, and whenever you step to the exam hall, start with, because please make sure that you write the title of the booklet clearly, because last time I have had somebody who said that they have titled the answer booklet as strategic management and they've written IT in that, and they made this complicated things. Of course, people will really take into consideration, but I don't think you should be trying to do that. So little concentration while you start off the exam makes sense, and up to you. Whichever answers you remember the best, you can always do that. And if it's easy, you can try and go along with that. Make sure of it. I've put up so many videos on YouTube. You can always go through them on understanding how you should do exclusive tasks. You can always go around that. And then coming to this 70 marks, the final aspect of one thing that I want to tell, make sure that you write to the best of your abilities. If you are writing 60 out of the 70, no harm, but please, for the sake of reaching that limit, don't touch and write, simply put the heading and write nonsense. And I add one very important point again. People, you know what they do? They leave place. I'll tell you a simple example here. So you wrote 3A, let's say, this is a common mistake that generally people do. Now you're writing answers, they wrote 3A, they wrote the entire answer here. 3B, now you don't know this. One of the most common mistakes what generally people do, leave place here because you don't know that, and then you go to 3C in the next page and automatically write your content there also. Okay, good for you, because 3A and 3C you've written very nicely, and this happens to be somewhere in the beginning of your paper. Now what you did, you finished the entire exam, then people come back to 3B. Because they left the place here, now what they'll do is, they start writing something here just to fill that space which is not very relevant. It's not the correct answer. The one who is writing also knows that, but they fill some content here. Now the problem that arises is, you came in the end and wrote, that is something that you know. But for the examiner, when he is reading, he'll read 3A, and then when he reads 3B, now that's a shock to him. Wherein till now you have been writing all proper content, suddenly you have messed up one answer. And this changes the dimension of the examiner's reading. Now he starts, okay, this so and so person is capable of writing some content like this also. So we have to be even more cautious while reading. Now you are attracting unwanted attention completely. But you know, sitting in the exam hall, you will not even realize that you did this and came. Because you have almost, let's say, 40 marks of answers written after this. I am not saying they will go and mark every answer wrong because you wrote this. But how much ever 3C is good, because of your presentation in 3B, which is not up to the mark, examiners have their own concerns and they'll start reading everything with more critical detail, because you bluffed here some nonsense and they now believe that you can do it anywhere. So why are you giving that chance? So make sure to, if you don't know 3B totally at all, don't just for the sake of filling the answer sheet write it. Now you know that very clearly you are going to not get any marks. Don't write it here. Okay, do whatever you can do, the best you can finish here. And like I said, to the end you write 3B. Now you are leaving the option to them. So after correcting 3B, they feel like giving you 1 out of 3 because you wrote something. They feel like giving you 1 out of 3. But sir, I missed the order. Will they give me or not? Again, as I told you, they are not obligated to give you. But benefit of this situation is always given to the student. 1 extra mark, if it does good to the student, they will generally consider. But don't mess up the flow of your answers. Very common mistake. Leaving place, coming at the end of the exam and filling that place. Forgetting that when they are reading, they will not read in the order. No, you are not writing any note to the examiner. See, I have written answers in this order. You read all that and then come to 3B and correct with that mindset. Your mindset was, I have done my paper well, 3B is extra. So if I am writing 3B, some crap, if I get marks, okay. If I don't, it's okay. This is your mindset. And indulging that in between the paper is one of the biggest drawbacks of paper presentation that I have seen. So please don't do that. If you don't know an answer thoroughly, now if you know only 3 points, write only 3 points. Fourth and fifth point you want to fill back, come and do that later. But not an entire answer that is going to be your venture of attempting to do something. That I believe could be very, very dangerous, and that can kind of screw up the whole process or the effort of you writing the answers, right? So yeah, those are some of the insights that I wanted to share here. And try and make sure that you do flowcharts well, because 6 marks sometimes you have strong possibility. So if you have 30 marks MCQs and one good question like flowcharts, you can as well do it very well. 30-35 marks are already there out there. One more question that can come in strategic management, which I have seen in the past exams, is that they can give you a company situation about certain things and products, and they'll tell you fix this in the BCG matrix. Have you seen that kind of a question? These are not called practical questions, these are practical cases wherein they'll give you a company situation. For this company, draw the BCG matrix. That means you have to identify which of them is a cash cow, which of them is a star, and then put that box. There, I think you have in your study material also some of the sample questions are there how to do this. Or they can ask you, they can give you a company situation and ask you a question from the ANSOS matrix, asking you which technique is this? Is it market penetration or is it market development? So concentrate on those kind of questions also. End of study material in the chapter of portfolio management, you have that. So go through those questions, because those questions are way too scoring in the exam. All you need to do is to read the question carefully, fix up the answer. Understood? So yeah, I think if you go by that aspect, two things guys, it's not just about the 3 hours in the exam, because if you have to be ready for 3 hours in the exam, back home there is a preparation that's needed strongly. So what can you do to elaborate your preparation? That was not our topic today, but still I managed to give you some insights. But I believe you all know what to do sitting back home. Make sure that you study well. After studying, prepare that summary, keep revising that summary. Revision is your ultimate weapon, because in our course, by-hearting will not serve the purpose. Simply trying to memorize will not serve the purpose. So make sure that you understand the concept, prepare revision notes or summary notes for your own self, and keep that going, and then use the basic presentation tips. And in IT, that's what is essential. So because IT or EIS, people find it way out of their scope and think this is not our subject at all. Let me take this occasion to tell you that IT or EIS, whatever you are cursing now, will be your best friend later, because the environment that you are going to work very soon, or already most of you who are through direct entry who are working, you are seeing how much use of information technology is there around us. But sir, is it really important to write question and answers in the exam? Obviously. And a specific note to the new syllabus. The new syllabus is very, very industry oriented. So make sure that you study it well. And when you're dealing topics like risk and controls, like at this point exclusively for the new syllabus EAS, there are a lot of risk and control aspects. What are the risks and what are the controls? Those tables, don't by heart those tables. Try to understand what are the risks. See, the risk is whatever the gap is. How to solve that will be the control. So if let's say in core banking systems, one of the risk is one person himself may approve the loan, and then he may only sanction the loan and take the money also, which is where the control will be segregation of duties. So like that, understand what is the risk. System, sometimes manual calculations can go wrong. If that is the risk, use automated calculation. That is the control. So like that, what is the risk? What is the opposite of that risk to do the control? Like that, you can easily understand risk and controls. Don't panic about those tables and leave them at all. Okay. So if you can prepare well, keeping all these things in mind, I hope to the extent of what is required in the limited time that we have, I think I have given whatever I can. I hope this is informative. So please spend good amount of time. Your exams are postponed. Make sure that you make them count. Sit back home. There is no way, how you are going out and roaming around. So make sure that you sit back home, relax, stay safe at home, and constantly keep studying. Of course, before every attempt, CS students have always been in quarantine. So necessarily need not be because of the pandemic only you are in a quarantine. Make sure that you support yourself. Make sure that you take care of yourself. As of now, if you don't go and trouble others, that itself is a big help to the society that we're doing. So use the extended time for proper preparation, and if you want to check whether your presentations are up to mark, make sure that you write a mock exam for your own self. You don't even have to step out of your house for doing this. Take a mock exam question paper. Necessarily need not be only the mock exam paper. You can take the past exam questions, and I suggest you do that compulsorily for at least 2 past exams. So last November, May, whatever papers are available, everything is available in the institute's website. You can go there, take those papers, make sure that you write the exam back home. I mean, you don't have to lock yourself in exam conditions and write if you think that that is going to be too much. If you feel, no sir, I can sit back and write comfortably for 3 hours just like an exam, very good, because people who are attempting only one group, they have all the time in the world, you can sit and afford to do that. But if you feel sitting and writing 3 hours of an exam is not really fruitful for you, you can still do one thing. Take past exam question paper, read the question. If that question is the same thing that you are going to answer in exam, what points will you write? Make a bullet points of that, at least. So a 3-hour exam, you sit and finish in 1 hour instead of wasting too much time around that. If you feel, if you can dedicate time, nothing like that. But if you feel you want to finish that quick, but don't do keep the question paper this side and suggested answer this side and compare whether they gave the suggested answer correctly or not. This is what most people do. When they look back at previous exam questions, they'll download it along with answers and read question, immediately read answer. Then you're not putting your brain to test. Make sure at least 2 attempts, and if mock papers are released by ICAI, you can go for that. Or if RTPs are there, if you want to answer that, at least 2 attempt RTPs, 2 attempt past exam question. These are just to tell you where you can go wrong. And your exam hall should not be the first place where you are testing yourself to the great extent. So instead of writing 2-3 attempts further, write 2-3 attempts back home only. So last 2-3 attempt papers you take, write, practice well, that will improve your English. And most people, their time budgeting goes wrong only because they have never written such long time in the exam. So after writing lengthy answer, they'll be like, array, for a 5 marks answer, I wasted half an hour's time. You shouldn't be doing that. So practice these things back at home properly, and I hope all of you this time will make sure that you get good marks. So again, I wish you all the best.